I'm telling my story about my life and about the tragedy that my daughter was removed from my care without reason, without justification. I was never determined to be an unfit parent. Because my daughter did not want to see her father, who was very abusive to her, the first time she visited him, she was scared of him. And therefore, they blamed that on me, that I was not, quote, cooperating. For 6 years, he had never built a relationship with this child or the other two children. And he forcefully took her from the yard, threw her in the car. She hung out the window as he drove 50 miles away. And I was very fearful that she would not live or jump out of the vehicle as he was continuing to drive down the road without restraining her in a seatbelt. At first, I was told this was a temporary situation, that the child would only be with him for 3 months because she had too strong of a bond with her mother, and it was their job as a court to break the bond with her mother, force her to see her father. And it was my fault that she did not want to see her father. That was not true. At the end of 3 months, she was never returned to me. And during this time, he did not have full custody of her. He passed her off on his sister, Gail Zimmerman, who lived some 50 miles from Pueblo and did not take care of the child. She cried every night. When my son went to visit her, he was threatened and told that he couldn't visit his sister anymore. She was separated from her siblings for over 3 years. The only time that she was able to see her siblings was when my father died, and she was allowed to go to the funeral in Iowa. Then she saw her brother and sister, but after the funeral, she was forced to go back with him. I was not given visitation. I was not allowed to find out about her school activities, anything about her. I was not allowed to send her presents. She was ripped away from me, and I was not to have any contact with her, and the numerous attorneys that I hired did not advocate for me or put motions in to return this child to me. Only when I talked to Loretta Kennedy, the director of the county commissioners for Pueblo County, did all of a sudden Child Protection Services close our case and allow the child to be with him, who had a clear history of abuse. Then again, when she moved to North Carolina, Child Protection Services came in to investigate the situation and determined that this child had been abused, and she was safe with her older sister in Charlotte, North Carolina, but they still did not protect her. When he had the judge from Pueblo, Victor Reyes, do an order to Mecklenburg County in Charlotte, North Carolina, to return the child to Colorado, that's exactly what the judge in Charlotte did. They did not recognize that this is a very abused child, and that to put the child back with an abuser and cross-dresser is not in the child's best interest. Nowhere did anyone think of the child's best interest. They did not take into any recognition that the therapist that worked with Megan said that she was safe in Charlotte and should remain there. Then when her older sister was threatened, they flew back to Colorado. She spent 6 months in psychiatric hospitals. I wasn't allowed to see her. This is my own child in the hospital. he was allowed to continue to see her, even though the therapist felt that he was grooming her and that he was a pedophile and he should not have contact with her. And he would visit when the therapist was not in the hospital to circumvent having supervised visitation. Everything I did, I abided by court orders. I did everything that the court told me to do. I went to 5 different psychiatrists to get a clean bill of health, and all the psychiatrists said I had no mental illness. And when this was presented to court, the judge, the guardian ad litem, Doug Glover, lied to the judge and said I manipulated the psychiatrist and that I fooled him. And the psychiatrist couldn't do an accurate evaluation because I manipulated them. That's absolutely not true. And you have 5 psychiatrists that say I have no mental illness. Yes, I have been stressed and I have post-traumatic stress syndrome from not having my child and from being called into court month after month, hearing after hearing, having all my assets stolen and having my medical license taken away. He would tell the older 2 children time and again, I spent $40,000 in legal fees to my attorney, James Rippinger, to have your mother's license taken away. It cost me a lot of money. Well, if it cost you a lot of money and took 3 years to do it, apparently I was a good doctor. He went to several of my patients and told them, please write a statement that Dr. Foelske is not a good physician because we want to take her license away and we're reporting her to the Colorado Medical Board. None of my patients would write a letter. My patients were very loyal to me. I had no problems with any malpractice. I had no complaints before the Board of Medical Examiners. At that point, I had been practicing over 18 years and now close to 25, 30 years. I have never had a lawsuit. I have never had a grievance against me, but because he fabricated these alleged incidents against me, that I was not in my office and I had a PA working there for 2 weeks, then I was a bad doctor because I didn't hire another doctor to back up myself with a phone access. It was just a complete tragedy. And after spending thousands of dollars on lawyers to defend myself against the board, I said, fine, you have to admit to unprofessional conduct. I didn't have unprofessional conduct, but to let it go away, I said, fine, you cannot practice in a rural area because someday you may make a mistake. And I thought, after nearly 20 years of practicing in rural Colorado and not making a mistake, why would I suddenly make a mistake? So there's a discrimination against physicians in rural Colorado, that somehow they're incompetent. And so therefore, I'm on 5 years probation. I have another physician review 5 random charts, and I must work in a group practice so that another physician can, quote, observe me. It's absolutely not fair. It's absolutely ridiculous because now I have difficulty finding employment because of this stipulation. Before this happened, I was gainfully employed. I had my own practice. I had a rural health clinic. I served many, many people in southeastern Colorado, and I was appreciated, I think, by my patients, and I delivered high quality medical care for them. This impact of having my daughter be with a person who is not taking care of her, and now she is not living with him. I do not know where she's living. It has profound effect on a concerned mother. The courts did not look after or look out for my daughter. They did not look out for my parental rights, and they continued to discriminate against me and favor him who was not even interested in being a parent. This is just a tragedy that this child's life and mine has been ruined in this manner. Why isn't there a judge that can look at this and determine what's best for the child? I appealed to the appellate court. I appealed to Colorado Supreme Court. They denied my appeal, and I'm left without resources to continue to pay attorneys that won't help me in this case. Thank you. In summary, I would like to say that no matter how devoted the mother is, the courts discriminated against me, gave the child to a man whose house had been searched by the police department and who had 8 computers full of pornography. Because they couldn't prove absolutely it was toddlers, but maybe teenagers, he wasn't charged with pornography, and there were serious questions about his ability to be a parent. He's not interested in being a parent. He's interested in being vicious and vindictive against me. The detective Anderson, Dan Anderson, the detective for Pueblo Police Department, had been employed in Colorado Springs for 25 years in special victims. He said that Wayne Caldwell was the most dangerous criminal that he had witnessed in 25 years. He would not leave his own child in the same room as Wayne Caldwell for 2 minutes because he was so concerned about the safety of a child. There was pictures in his house of Mr. Caldwell, very inappropriate, and he continues to be abusive to his other 3 children, and yet the court system does not allow the child to stay with the parent who raised the child for the majority of the child's life, but turns the child over to a criminal who is not capable of parenting. Nor do they care how he parents her and if he gets treated for his sexual fetishes. The amount of money that was spent on this case was enormous. My son-in-law spent over $200,000 in attorney's fees. I spent over $80,000 in years of my life praying and trying to gain my daughter back. And yet the courts turned a deaf ear to this child and the best interest for her. They have ruined my child's future, the ability for her to become a gainfully employed adult, and for her to have a relationship with her brother, sister, and her mother. It's just a very sad tragedy that is ongoing in Colorado. Thank you.